So anyone who knows me may know that I am a simp for Apple products. I think that's no secret. But even I can come out and say that these new iPads are a letdown. Apple has always offered such great accessibility options, such as their screen reader VoiceOver that reads things on the screen for blind people like me so that we can read our incoming text messages, our notifications, things within apps like the YouTube app. You can read the titles of a YouTube video, and even VoiceOver can label certain buttons so that you can use more intensive apps. Like, because of VoiceOver, I'm able to edit this very YouTube video that you're watching. I do love Apple products. I'm filming this video on my iPad 10th generation, 256 gigs, and I love to use my iPad 10 for doing things like editing YouTube videos, watching YouTube, playing games. I have an iPad mini A17 Pro, which I love to use for watching videos in bed. It's just a great carry-on device that's small, fits in one hand, and most importantly, it's a great travel device. You can slide this into your backpack and take this on the go with you. If you're someone like me who uses public transport, you can use this on the train or on the bus or in the car with one hand and you can download stuff from Hulu or Netflix or Paramount Plus or YouTube and watch stuff without Wi-Fi. I have an iPhone 14 Pro Max, which is great for men with big hands like me. But as much as I love Apple products, these new iPads are a letdown. For example, did Apple even try? Look at the press release image for the 2022 base model iPad versus the one that just came out for 2025. It's the same image. And they didn't really add much. The 2022 iPad had an A14 Bionic chip. This new iPad 11th generation has an A16, which is the same chip that was used in the iPhone 14, while the A14 was used in the iPhone 12. You might say, well, that's a two-year chip gap. It must be a significantly better processor. Yeah, maybe a little faster, but it doesn't support Apple Intelligence. And I will admit, I don't use Apple Intelligence much myself. It's not great. But when Apple's really heavily promoting Apple Intelligence and is trying to make it the next big thing, you would think they would put it into all their iPads. That was even the rumor. The iPad mini got the A17 Pro chip. We thought that this was at least going to get an A17 or an A18 Pro. It didn't. They're leaving the iPad 11 out of one of their most important features in their mind. Not only that, but they didn't really change much in terms of design. The colors for the iPad 10 and the iPad 11 are the exact same. I have the blue variant. Guess what? They're still offering the same blue, yellow, space gray colors that they offered for the iPad 10th gen. The same blue, pink, and space gray. iPad Air, same situation. Same colors. The iPad Air M3 didn't change much except for, add the slightly faster M3 chips so you may have a slightly better performance in gaming. But guess what? The M2 is already a beast and you're not really going to notice much of a difference. The jump from let's say the M2 to the M4 on the iPad Pro was a pretty big deal. The chip was practically twice as fast, but M2 to M3 isn't that much of a big difference, to the point that we didn't even get an M3 iPad Pro because they probably knew not much would change. The only thing about the iPad 11 that I guess I can give props to is they finally trashed 64 gigabytes and started the iPad 11 at 128 gigs, which they really should have done sooner anyway. I mean, 64 gigabytes is way too little in 2025, but it was way too little in 2022 as well. Then they still offer the 256 gigabyte variant, which is good, and the iPad 11 does go up to 512 gigabytes, which they also gave the iPad mini last year. But honestly, this should have happened sooner. Like I said, it's not the big deal Apple's trying to make it. I mean, they really do promote that there is more storage by including it in the promotional release for this iPad and putting it in that language as if it is a big deal, when really they should have done that in 2022. So it doesn't have the same effect Apple wants you to think it does. And you still have to use the old Apple Pencil. So there's not even new Apple Pencil support, so... And people have been upset about that for a while, and were upset when the 2022 iPad had to use the same old Apple Pencil. So, this iPad isn't really worth it. If you already have an iPad 10th gen that has 256 gigabytes, I really don't think you need to buy or upgrade to this new iPad. You're not really going to notice much in performance. The jump from A14 to A16 isn't the big jump that you think it is. It's still the same colors. Still the same storage option of 256, which I don't think many people bought the 64 gig option anyway. So unless you have a 64 gig iPad 10, you really don't need to upgrade. I would suggest upgrading to the 128 gig iPad 10, to the 128 gig iPad 11, but if you don't have that, then what's the point? If you already have a 256 gig iPad 10 like I do, I don't plan on upgrading. Not to mention, now that it's jumped in price, I'm sure you can just get a refurbished 256 iPad 10 for $399. I mean, this new iPad starts at $349, so we all know that the $499 to the iPad 10 isn't going to go for 256 gigabytes at $499. It's probably going to go down to around $399 on Amazon, so why not get that refurbished or even brand new in some cases and get an iPad that basically does the exact same at a cheaper price. Not to mention, if you're willing to spend a little bit more, guess what? You could get a 256 gigabyte iPad mini A17 Pro at $599, which has a laminated display, faster USB-C charging speeds, a better processor, all for the same price you would buy a 256 gig version of this for. So why not just go with that? Or you could get the 128 gigabyte iPad Air with the M3 chip for $599. Yeah, it might be less storage, but better processor, and you could store some stuff on flash drives and get a pretty good iPad. So honestly, I don't think these new iPads are worth it in any way. But that's just my opinion. Leave your opinions in the comments of what you think about these new iPads. We can talk about it in the comments. And if you want to know what I think of the new MacBooks, a video on the new MacBook Air and Mac Studio will be coming out next week.